All right. Ron, it worked. It's working. All right. Ron, it worked. Okay. It works. It's alive. Is it echoing? Oh, that might be. Oh, that's actually probably just because. Wait, hold on. I also have to mute something. Yeah, it's because I had the audio on. But I also have to mute something else as well. I also have to mute something else as well, I realized. When I do this, I have to mute Discord, I'm pretty sure. So otherwise, you guys will fucking hear the sounds, I'm pretty sure. Ah! Ah! I hear noises. Scream. Okay, we're gonna turn off Discord. Because I hate Discord. I hate you. Yeah, we're meeting Discord. Yesterday, I frickin' went over, the introduction, and now we're on chapter 1. Yeah, I actually saw that the AO streaming is starting. That the AO is starting. That AO is starting now. Before I start, I wanted to talk about something. Recently, I started reading. By recently, I mean literally this morning. I started reading the Ignorant Schoolmaster. It was something that was recommended to me a while ago, and I just finally got around to reading it. And it's really good. So far, I finished chapter 1 today, and it's really good, is what I have to say. And I will not elaborate further. Just it's really good. I won't explain why. I won't explain anything. Because this is a Latour stream, not a Rancière stream. And so, chapter 1, why political ecology has to let go of nature. An interest in nature, we are told, is precisely what is novel about political ecology. In this view, political ecology extends the narrow field of the classic preoccupation of politics to new beings that have previously found themselves underrepresented or badly represented. In this first chapter, I want to challenge the solidity of the link between political ecology and nature. Despite what it often asserts, I'm going to show that political ecology, at least in its theories, has to let go of nature. Indeed, nature is the chief obstacle that has always hampered the development of public discourse. This argument, which is only paradoxical in appearance, as we shall see, requires us to bring together 3 distinct findings. One from the sociology of the sciences, another from the practice of the ecology movements, and the third from comparative anthropology. But this necessity is what makes our present task so difficult. In order to approach the true subject of our work, we need to take for granted demonstrations that would call for several volumes each. I can either waste precious time convincing my readers of this, or else I can move ahead as quickly as possible, while asking readers to judge the tree only by its fruits. That is, to wait until the following chapters to see how the postulates presented here make it possible to renew the exercise of public life. I fucking love Latour. I love his writing. I love this guy. He's such a... The introduction was really good. This has a glossary. Sayers was already referenced in the introduction. Sayers was already referenced. His book, The Natural Contract, was referenced. Statues apparently is going to come up later. Statues is going to come up later. And so yeah, I read the introduction yesterday. That took like a fucking hour. Because this thing has a glossary. It has a glossary, and so I was most of the time I was trying to go through the terms a little bit. Let me begin with one small contribution of science studies, without which it would be impossible to cover the necessary ground. In all that follows, I shall ask my readers to agree to disassociate the sciences in the plural and in small letters from science in the singular and capitalized. I ask readers to acknowledge that discourse on science has no direct relation to the life of the sciences. The problem of knowledge is posed quite differently, depending on whether one is brandishing science or clinging to the twists and turns of the sciences as they are developed. I ask readers finally to grant that if nature in the singular is closely linked with science, the sciences, for their part, in no way require such unification. If we were trying to approach the question of political ecology as if capital S science and the sciences were one and the same enterprise, we would end up with radically different positions. In the first section, in fact, I'm going to define science as the politicization of the sciences through epistemology in order to render ordinary political life impotent to the threat of an incontestable nature. I shall, of course, have to justify this definition, which seems so contradictory to good sense, but the single word science already combines the imbroglio of politics, nature, and knowledge that we must learn to disentangle. It is clear that we cannot set out on our journey without removing the threat that capital S science has always brought to bear, as much on the exercise of politics as on the practices of scientific researchers. What's it called? We're gonna take a fucking... This is gonna be very slow. I love Bruno Latour. Bruno Latour's my guy. You know, many people have their guys. Sunday, you know, President Sunday, he has Carl Schmitt. Brooks, he has what's his name? Deleuze. Sorry, my cat's being annoying. He's distracting me. And you know, I have Bruno Latour. You know, the trifecta, and I like going slow with Latour. I always like going slow with Latour. I like this. I just want to see if there's anything new in this definition. No, there isn't. Was there something else I wanted to look up? I think there was another term. Oh no, what I wanted to do was, there was a note. So that's is it 270? No, 270, it's 250. 252. And then note 1 is, with regard to this argument, see the companion volume, Latour 1999b, which Latour 1999b, by the way, is Pandora's Hope. I am especially indebted, of course, to the now classic text by Stephen Shapin and Simon Schaeffer, the many commentaries it has generated. Fuck, what was that? What's that text? I know that. It comes up a lot. Stephen Shapin and Simon Schaeffer. Oh, is it the air pump? It's the Leviathan and the air pump. That's a good one. That seems like it's a good one. So yeah. Pandora's Hope. I haven't read it entirely, but I read the first chapter, like the introduction chapter, and really good. It's really solid. You should read. Pandora's Hope's really good. All of Latour's stuff is really good. And then basically all of Latour's references are also amazing. They're also amazing. I don't have anything else to add. I completely forgot where we were, so this, okay, chapter 1. You're on this. I didn't pay attention to the page number. If you guys have any questions, you guys can just ask. I don't give a fuck, I'll answer as best as I can. First, get out of the cave. And the cave here is Plato's cave. It's Plato's cave, is what it is. It's really obvious. A lot of Latour stuff is kind of obvious that way. He's playing with kind of definite things, and Latour also likes to use simple terms, and the simple terms basically mean what they are. They do and they don't. That's the one problem with Latour. His terms are technical and specific, but they don't deviate that far from how we actually use them. And that's kind of the whole thing about Latour. Latour's big on that, on stuff like that. He argues in the beginning that what he's doing isn't in the introduction. What he's doing isn't revolutionary. There's nothing revolutionary about what he's doing. He's simply describing the way things are. Sorry, that's a bad way. He's describing something. He's describing things that are already happening, and his focus is specifically on the theoretical side of political ecology, as opposed to the side of political ecology that's practiced. Quite literally, like the practical side, the things that are actually done. Because Latour argues that in practice, political ecology is already somewhat done this way, and that it's hampered, though, by the theoretical side not taking up certain things. Or not conceiving things in specific ways, and not moving past certain things. If you want to move ahead quickly while remaining precise, nothing is as concise as a myth. As it happens in the West, through the ages, we have become heirs to an allegory that defines the relations between science and society. The allegory of the cave, recounted by Plato in the Republic. I have no intention of getting lost in the twists and turns of Greek philosophy. I shall simply focus on 2 points of rupture, 2 radical shifts that will help us dramatize all the virtues that might be expected of capital S science. The philosopher and later the scientist have to free themselves from the tyranny of the social dimension, public life, politics, subjective feelings, popular agitation. In short, from the dark cave, they want to accede to truth. Such is the first shift, according to the allegory. There exists no possible continuity between the world of human beings and access to truths not made by human hands. And then 252. Oh wait, sorry. Wait, no, it's right. I'm right. Yeah, I am right. Okay. On the origin, history, and impact of this expression, I've recently compiled a sort of incomplete encyclopedic assemblage, Latour in Bible, 2002. This is Democracy of Objects. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure this is going to be Democracy of Objects. Objects, Bruno Latour. No, it's not Democracy of Objects. Bruno Latour. What's the name of it? Objects. Objects. What the fuck is it called? We're taking a detour because I'm thinking this out. Bruno Latour. Let's go to the page. Bruno Latour, the Bruno Latour page. Books and edited volumes. Guy, reset modernity, reassembling the social. Making things public. Atmospheres of democracy. That's why I confused it. I know Democracy of Objects because someone recommended it to me and I still haven't read it. Because I focus on the tour too much. We're on page 10 still, right? I think so. Yeah. The allegory of the cave makes it possible to create in one fell swoop a certain idea of science and a certain idea of the social world that will serve as a foil for science. But the myth also proposes a second shift. The capital S scientist once equipped with laws not made by human hands that he has just contemplated because he has succeeded in freeing himself from the prison of the social world can go back into the cave so as to bring order to it with incontestable findings that will silence the endless chatter of the ignorant mob. Once again, there is no continuity between the henceforth irrefutable objective law and the human, all too human, logorrhea of the prisoners shackled in the shadows, who never know how to bring their interminable disputes to an end. Never seen that word. A tendency to extreme loquacity. Okay. The quality of talking a great deal. Okay. Figured it out. Okay. So, just go through it again, since I freaking stopped because I had to read something. Um, to get the truth, they have to get rid of stuff like subjective feelings, politics, the social life. I'm not going to say aesthetics because Latour might consider that part of it and in it, and so that's what the capital S scientist has to do. And the second one, then that's the first one, and then the second one is the capital S scientist has to with his rules of with his objective rules has to bring order and silence the mob. Uh, The illuminating power of this allegory, the source of its inexhaustible effectiveness, stems from the following peculiarity. Neither of these two radical shifts prevents the emergence of its exact contrary, and the contraries turn out to be combined in one and the same heroic figure, that of the philosopher-scientist, at once lawgiver and savior. Although the world of truth differs absolutely, not relatively, from the social world, the scientist can go back and forth from one world to the other, no matter what. The passageway closed to all others is open to him alone. In him and through him, the tyranny of the social world is miraculously interrupted when he leaves, so that he will be able to contemplate the objective world at last. And it is likewise interrupted when he returns, so that, like a latter-day Moses, he will be able to substitute the legislation of scientific laws which are not open to question for the tyranny of ignorance. Without this double interruption, there can be no science, no epistemology, no paralyzed politics, no Western conception of public life. He is he does a similar thing. I think he's making a similar, though different. It is very different still. Thing that he makes in Factish Gods, which is the first book I ever read by him. In Factish Gods, there is the uh uh the two critical repertoires. If you've seen Brooks's video on Michael Burns' video about what was it about again? It was about something that I don't care about. But if you see that video, Latour comes up and he goes over the first salvo and the second salvo. It's called in there. It's not referred to as the double repertoire of critical denunciation like it is in Factish. But in there, a similar thing happens, where the critic says, "You don't do anything. I mean, the fetish doesn't do anything. You do something." But then the critic, who never sleeps, when the naive believer finally thinks, "Oh, I do have control over my actions," says, "No, no, don't be silly. You don't either. You don't have control over your actions, you idiot. You're controlled by genes, the laws of economics, and all that stuff." And that's kind of a similar thing, a little bit of a similar thing. It's a little bit related. Um, but he's doing a kind of similar shift to that. I very much think so. A lot of Latour's stuff is there's really interesting similarities between it all. Though not all of it is the same. There are distinctions that need to be made when talking about his conceptions that seem quite similar. In the original myth, as we know, the philosopher managed only with the greatest difficulty to break the chains that attached him to the shadowy world, and when he returned to the cave after exhausting trials, his former fellow prisoners put the bearer of good news to death. Over the centuries, thank God, the fate of the philosopher turned scientist has greatly improved. Today, sizable budgets, vast laboratories, huge businesses, and powerful equipment allow researchers to come and go in complete safety between the social world and the world of ideas, from the ideas to the dark cave where they go to bring light. The narrow door has become a broad boulevard. In 25 centuries, however, one thing has not changed in the slightest. The double rupture, which the form of the allegory endlessly repeats, manages to maintain as radically as ever. Such is the obstacle that we shall have to remove if we want to change the very terms by which public life is defined. Is the double rupture? I assume the double rupture. He didn't refer to it as the double rupture, but I assume this isn't the double rupture. I don't think. I think the double rupture is the capital S scientist needs to get past subjective feelings, the social world and stuff like that. He needs to get past that. And then also he needs his findings to, I think that's the double rupture. He needs his findings to silence the ignorant mob. Oh, I didn't read that. Wait. Okay, yeah, I did read that. Okay. Wrong. However vast the laboratories may be, however, attached researchers may be too industrious, however many technicians they may have to employ, however active the instruments for transforming data, however constructive the theories, none of this matters. You will be told straight out that capital S science can only survive as long as it distinguishes absolutely and not relatively between things as they are, and the representation that human beings make of them. Without this division between ontological questions, epistemological questions, all moral and social life would be threatened. And then section, footnote 3. Section 3. Unlike Karl Popper, 1963, criticizes Plato's totalitarianism, the better to save Socrates, I am not attacking either Plato or Socrates here, but rather the obsessive repetition of the allegory in today's trivialized version, which still claims to be saving the Republic through science. See Latour 99b for detailed analysis of Gorgias that owes a great deal to Barbara Cassin. Gorgias. I don't know what that is. Gorgias. Gorgias was an ancient Greek sophist, pre-Socratic philosopher, and rhetorician who was native of several doctors for that he was a pupil of Empedocles. Okay, so he was before Socrates. I don't know much about this. I don't know much about this. Okay, okay. I'm sure. I wonder what the Barbara Cassin thing is. Barbara Cassin. Fundamentals for ophthalmic technical personnel. Okay. Okay, good buddy. That's a funny reference. So if this is right, which I assume it is, because it seems like no, this isn't right. It's a different thing. It's the sophistic effect. This has been referenced. I've seen this reference before. Is what it's called in English. It's called the sophistic effect. And it's by Barbara Cassin. Where is it? I want to find it again. Is this it? No, this is a no. Maybe I need to type in the French name. Maybe I did type in the French name. Yeah, I did. That is what I did. That is what I did. Uh, I'll type the French name in chat because I don't know what the English name is. It seems to be whenever I look it up, it talks about the sophistic effect. That is called the sophistic effect, and that's what it seemed to be translated to. It seemed, but I don't know what the English version of the book is actually called. Um, so yeah, pretty sad then. I was on 12, wasn't I? Yeah, I was. No, no, it is referring to sophists. Um, I thankfully French is close enough to English where you can kind of guess what words mean. Um, and it was talking about sophists, like the ancient, like the Greek thing or whatever, like the insult. Not really, but kind of. If we pretend, yeah. Why? Because without it, there would be no more reservoir of incontrovertible certainties that can be brought in to put an end to the incessant chatter of obscurantism and ignorance. There would no longer be a sure way to distinguish what is true from what is false. One could no longer break free of social determiners to understand what things themselves are, and for want of the essential comprehension, one could no longer cherish the hope of pacifying public life, which is always threatened by civil war. Nature and human beliefs about nature would be mixed up in a frightful chaos. Public life, having imploded, would lack the transcendence without which no interminable dispute could end. Uh. But okay, sorry, I was just going over this again because we stopped. Basically, the thing he's going over is, I know it's kind of quite simple. Um, capital S science needs to distinguish um the social from the natural. I'm just gonna say that. I'm not gonna. I'm just gonna say that. That's what I'm gonna say because I don't care. It's close enough. It's fine. It's basically what he means. It's close enough to what he means. It's a bit more specific, but it also isn't. He also makes this with when he just says the social and the natural. Um, uh, the social and the natural has to be distinct under capital S science, absolutely, and not relatively. Um, because otherwise, capital S science fears that there's going to be outbreaks of civil war that they can never actually figure out what is true and what is false anymore. And that's kind of the thing. That's just kind of the thing. It's really simple. Latour's kind of easy. I'm going to continue to explain, but Latour's kind of easy. Latour's kind of simple. He kind of just says shit, and it's like it's exactly what it says. It's just you just read the words. You just gotta read the words. If you point out politely the very ease with which scientists pass from the social world the world of external realities, the facility they demonstrate through this business of importing and exporting scientific laws, the fluency of the discourse in which they convert human and objective elements, prove clear enough there is no rupture between the two worlds. They are dealing rather with a seamless cloth. You will be accused of relativism. You'll be told that you're trying to give science, capital S science, social explanation. Your unfortunate tendencies toward immoralism will be denounced. You may ask publicly if you believe in the reality of the external world or not, or whether you are ready to jump out of a 15-story window because you think that the laws of gravity, too, are socially constructed. That's a reference. That's a reference to fucking Pandora's box. I mean, Pandora's, hope. Foolish remarks of this sort were endemic to the famous Sokol affair. For overviews of this tempest in a teapot, see Bedoin Judant 1998. What's that? What's that book? 1998. Is this it? Is it the mode in the bean? Okay, this is not it. Did they spell his name wrong? It might be missing. I think it's missing. Yeah, I think they did. It's missing the U. It's not. There should be a U between the O and the I. Okay. And this is the frickin', for anyone interested, I'm just gonna keep posting the things in the chat. It isn't Latour who got this wrong. It's his editor. It's Catherine Porter. Catherine Porter missed the U. Missed the U. She did. Uh-oh. I wanted to go to 12, not 122. Latour has many. They're not graphs. They're not graphs. Don't think they're not graphs. They're Latour's schizo drawings. And I love them all. I do love them all. And they all make complete. And yes, they're Latour's diagrams. And I love his diagrams. I love all of his diagrams. We have to be able to reflect such sophistry on the part of philosophers of the sciences. It has been used for 25 centuries to silence politics as soon as the question of nature comes up. Let us face the facts at the outset. There is no way out of this trap. And yet, at first glance, nothing ought to be more innocent than epistemology. We're going to look up epistemology, the little dictionary Latour has. 237 is the start of it. I'm going to go to epistemology, so I have to go to the E's. The E's. Okay. Epistemology. Political. Epistemology. Political. Political. In parentheses, epistemology. And then political epistemology. In the proper sense of the term, epistemology refers to the study of the sciences and the procedures for such study, like science studies but with different instruments. In contrast, I use the term in air quotes, in parentheses, political epistemology, or less kindly, epistemology police, to designate the distorting of theories of knowledge in order to rationalize politics without respecting the procedures for coordination either of the sciences or of politics. It is a matter of engaging in politics in a way that is protected from all politics, hence the parentheses. Finally, I use the term political epistemology, without parentheses, to designate the analysis of the explicit distribution of powers between scientists and politics in the framework of the Constitution. Uh, yeah. Okay. It is epistemology, science, study of science, and the ways to go about studying science. Parentheses, political epistemology uh, is the using of epistemology for political purposes, but not making that at all explicit, um, so as to make it seem like you're not also engaging in a political project and you also aren't respecting science and politics. And then political epistemology, without the parentheses, um, is the is basically what Latour does in We Have Never Been Modern, which is talking about the Constitution, um, which is not the American Constitution, obviously, and describing um, how that operates. I guess is kind of the simple way. And the Constitution is. I'll just go to the thing. Let's go to the thing. It'll be quicker. Term borrowed from law and political science, used here in a broader metaphysical sense, since it refers to the division of beings into humans and non-humans, objects and subjects, and the type of power and ability to speak, mandate, and will that they receive. Unlike the term culture, constitution refers to things as well as to persons. Unlike the term structure, it points to the willful, explicit, spelled-out character of this apportionment. To dramatize the contrast, I set the old modern constitution in opposition to the new constitution of political ecology, the way the old regime in French history is set in opposition to the republic. See also experimental metaphysics. And so yeah, basically, the constitution refers to the division of of uh, whoa, what the fuck was that? Fucking, I heard a sound. That scared me. What was I saying? Oh, the Constitution. The Constitution is basically just the old and the new one is just talking about um the division of humans and non-humans, uh, and stuff like that. It's just stuff. It's Latour stuff. It's just Latour stuff. You guys should read your Latour. Since you're all good Latour readers, you guys know this already, so it's fine. I don't need to explain any of this to you. I wish. I wish it was meant to be, but I wish my house was burning up. I'm gonna restart the paragraph, by the way. We have to be able to reflect such sophistry on the part of philosophers of the sciences. It has been used for 25 centuries to silence politics as soon as the question of nature comes up. Let us face the facts at the outset. There is no way out of this trap. And yet, at first glance, nothing ought to be more innocent than epistemology. Knowledge about knowledge, meticulous descriptions of scientific practices in all their complexity. Let us not confuse this highly respectable form of of epistemology with an entirely different activity that I shall call, in parentheses, political epistemology. Using parentheses because this discipline came to be limited to capital S science, whereas its aim is really just to humiliate politics. And then 252 again. We're gonna do 5. We're gonna do 5. And then 5 is, I must have been in my cups. I promised never again to speak ill of epistemologists, but the so-called circle affair set me off again, reviving a righteous anger against the form of fundamentalism in the realm of reason, which has a lot in common with the religious form. From here on, I shall distinguish the political epistemology that deals simultaneously with the organization of public life and with the sciences from epistemology in the strict sense. The epistemology that applies philosophy to problems of knowledge without making any special effort to short-circuit the political question. Stephen Chapin, 1994, would be an example of the first, and Pierre Duhem, 1904, the second. I have the greatest respect for my epistemologist colleagues who use different tools from mine to try to grasp the secret of scientific practices. I have equal respect for political epistemologists who agree to the theory of sciences and political science as a single philosophical problem. However, I have no respect at all for those who claim that the problem of knowledge has to be distinguished from the political question in order to hold the frenzy of the social world at bay. It is crucial to combat epistemologists of the last sort. It is in order to distinguish these from the others that I add parentheses to the expression political epistemology. Whether we are talking about the organization of public life and must not mix in questions about the nature of scientific activity, or else we are talking about scientific production. There is no reason to combine it with considerations about bringing politics into line. One political epistemology against another political epistemology, fine. Epistemology against epistemology, certainly. Epistemology against politics, out of the question. Basically what he's trying to say is epistemology, good. Political epistemology, without the parentheses, good. Political epistemology with the parentheses, bad. Why is it bad? Because it wants to separate the social from the science from the political, and yeah, that's fine. I'm not gonna explain why. There's a reason. I could probably explain it, but you guys know this. You guys know Latour will make the point himself. He's gonna make the point soon, like he always does. He always makes his points. And we're at 5. The goal of this form of epistemology is by no means to describe the sciences, contrary to what its etymology might suggest, but to short-circuit any and all questioning as to the nature of the complex bonds between the sciences and societies, the invocation of capital S science as the only salvation from the prison of the social world. The double rupture of the cave is not based on any empirical investigation or observed phenomena. It is even contrary to common sense, the daily practice of all scientists. And if it ever did exist, 25 centuries of sciences, laboratories, and scholarly institutions have long since done away with it. But it cannot be helped. The epistemology police will always cancel out that ordinary knowledge by creating the double rupture between elements that everything connects, and depicting those who cast doubt on the double rupture as relativists, sophists, and immoralists, but to ruin any chance we have to accede to external reality, and thus to reform society on the rebound. Yeah. Also, I was wrong. The double rupture actually is the separating of science from politics. The making, sorry, this, yeah, science from politics. And so it actually is that. I thought it might have been, but I wasn't sure because he also had the two. I forget what he called them, but he had the two other things. So I thought that was it, but I guess that also makes sense. That also is the same thing. I don't. That is also part. That is also part of it. I don't know why I didn't. I thought they were separate at first. For the idea of a double rupture to have resisted all contradictory evidence over the centuries, there must be a powerful reason buttressing its necessity. The reason can only be political or religious. We have to suppose that in parentheses, political epistemology, and on something else that holds it in place and lends it its formidable efficacy. Efficacy. That's efficacy, right? Hold on, wait. I'm having a fucking moment. Efficacy? Efficacy? Is that efficacy? Is that an alternative way to spell efficacy? I've never seen that. Efficacy. Okay. Yeah. 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 I I really also I looked it up. Apparently those are the same. Also, I was right. This is well, I think this is actually a different I think this actually is a different word, not just a different spelling. I think it might also be efficacy. I think yeah, I think you're right. It's efficacy, but efficacy isn't actually spelled like that. This is a woke spelling. This is a freaking woke spelling. How could we explain otherwise vindictive passion with which science studies are still being graded? If it were only a matter. Yeah, yeah, I looked it up, and apparently it's like it is literally just an alternative thing. It's synonyms efficacy. Definition. What's the let's go to the definition. Okay, don't take me to the definition. I hate you too. I hate you too. The ability, especially of medicine, or a method of achieving something to produce the intended result. Yeah. So it's just efficacy. It was always efficacy. It's been efficacy, but they've spelled it wokely. How could we explain otherwise the vindictive passion with which science studies are still being created? If it were only a matter of describing the practices of laboratories, we would not hear such loud protests, and the epistemologists would be able to mingle unproblematically with their colleagues in anthropology. Becoming so violently indignant, the political in air quotes, I'm just going to say the epistemology police have tipped their hand. Their trap is sprung. It no longer catches any flies. What is the use of the allegory of the cave today? It allows a constitution that organizes public life into two houses. Why do you hate the Cassidy person? Why do you hate them? What did they do wrong? 252. Oh, we're on 253 now. The notion of constitution, essential to the comprehension of this argument, is developed at length in Latour, 1993. It is a matter of placing the opposition between knowledge and power, between nature and society, the prior operation of distribution of the rights and responsibilities of humans and non-humans. It is this notion that makes symmetrical anthropology possible and makes modernity comparable to other forms of public organization. Uh, also, this is a We Have Never Been Modern. This is a We Have Never Been Modern reference. We're on page 13 yet? We were still on page 12. No, we are on page 13. The first is the obscure room depicted by Plato, in which ignorant people find themselves in chains, unable to look directly at one another, communicating only via fictions projected on a sort of movie screen. These are the two houses. The first house is this one, where it's just ignorant people looking at projections. The second is located outside, in a world made up not of humans, but of non-humans, indifferent to our quarrels, our ignorances, and the limit of our representations in fictions. The genius of the model stems from the role played by a very small number of persons. Sorry, before we go, and the second one is obviously this. It's the outside world of objects, basically. The first one is the human world of fictions and projections, or projections. And the third is the outside world of objects, indifferent and uncaring. The facts are the facts. The genius of the model stems from the role played by a very small number of persons, only one capable of going back and forth between the two assemblies and converting the authority of the one into that of the other. Despite the fascination exercised by ideas, even upon those who claim to be denouncing the idealism of the Platonic solution, it is not at all a question of opposing the shadow world to the real world, but of redistributing powers by inventing both a certain definition of capital S science and a certain definition of politics. Appearances notwithstanding, idealism is not what is at issue here. The myth of the cave makes it possible to render all democracy impossible by neutralizing it. That is its only trump card. Yeah. Okay. And so those two houses, fucking, the point of them is so that you can be like, no, you're woke. You can be Alan Sokol, basically. So the purpose of them is so you can write fashionable nonsense. Is what the point is. What I'm going to say this. In this constitution, dispensed by the epistemology police, how are the powers in fact distributed? The first house brings together the totality of speaking humans, who find themselves with no power at all, save that of being ignorant in common, or of agreeing by convention to create fictions devoid of any external reality. The second house is constituted exclusively of real objects that have the property of defining what exists, but that lack the gift of speech. On the one hand, you have the chattering of fictions, on the other, the silence of reality. The subtlety of this organization rests entirely on the power given to those who can move back and forth between the houses. A small number of hand-picked experts, for their part, presumably have the ability to speak, since they are humans, the ability to tell the truth, since they escape the social world thanks to the asceticism of knowledge, and finally, the ability to bring order to the assembly of humans by keeping its members quiet. Since the experts can return to the lower house in order to reform the slaves who lie chained in the womb. In short, these who elect, as they see themselves see it, are endowed with the most fabulous political capacity ever invented. They can make the mute world speak, tell the truth without being challenged, put an end to the interminable arguments to an incontestable form of authority that would stem from things themselves. Yeah. Yeah. I have a hard time most of the time summarizing Latour, because I think Latour just speaks for himself. He's just, what he's saying is obvious. I feel that way. Well, not that it's he writes clearly, is what I'm trying to say. He writes very clearly. What do you mean knowledge is stopping discourse? What are you saying, Bard? I'll wait for Bard to type out what he's yapping about. I'll wait for Bard to do that. The class is waiting, Bard. Gotta type quicker. Gotta type quicker. I'll go on. I'll go on. I'm sure you'll explain. And if you don't, I'll call you out. No, actually, not the scientists. The scientists don't do that. Um, the epistemology police, or the capital, or not the capital, the in parentheses political epistemologists do. It's not the scientists. Um, uh, Latour very much thinks knowledge is able to be got to. He would never frickin' disagree with that. Um, Never ever. Never ever. It's one of his many points that despite his thesis, knowledge is completely attainable. Like, despite what they're saying, that there's either this either or choice, there isn't the either or choice. You don't have to choose. There is no choice. They're the same thing. They're the same choice. Yeah. Um, well, actually, Latour would argue not that they use knowledge in a certain way, but they use polemics in a certain way. Sorry, they use facts in a certain way, matters of fact in a certain way, which Latour doesn't. Matters of fact for Latour aren't reality. They aren't reality. Matters of fact are he in the essay "Why Critique Has Run Out of Steam" and in other stuff. He describes them as a polemical way of describing things. It's something like that. I forget the exact wording. That's not right. The distinctions are important because if you don't make the distinctions, then Latour is anti-science. But if you do make the distinctions, Latour is very much pro-science, and he's not against science at all. He loves science. This guy's fucking... he glazes science. And that's why it's important to make the distinctions. And yet, at first glance, such a separation of powers seems impossible to maintain. It requires too many implausible hypotheses, too many undue privileges. People would never agree to define themselves as a collection of prisoners with life sentences who can neither speak directly to one another nor touch what they are talking about. And who find themselves reduced to chattering without saying anything at all. Moreover, no one would ever agree to give so many powers to a fairy load of experts whom no one had elected. Those, I probably did that. I probably did that on purpose, and I fucking forgot. Yes, if I don't make clear these distinctions, I do have to argue with Ren on Discord for literally forever, and I want to shoot myself at the end of it. Not in a video game, in real life. Even if we were to grant this first series of absurdities, how could we imagine that capital S scientists, and only capital S scientists, could accede to the inaccessible things themselves? More outrageous still, by what miracle would mute things suddenly become capable of speaking? By what fourth or fifth conjuring trick would real things, once granted speech through the mouths of philosopher kings, have the unheard of property of becoming immediately unchallengeable and shutting up the other humans? How can we imagine that these non-human objects can be mobilized to solve the problems of the prisoners, whereas the human condition has already been defined by a break with all reality? No, there is no question about it. We cannot pass this fairy tale off as a political philosophy like any other, and even less as superior to all others. Alas, basically he's there's kind of not much to say right now because Latour isn't getting to his arguments yet. He's not going to get to his arguments for a while. It's how Latour's books always start out. First chapter, quite literally is setting up everything. Either that or the beginning of the chapter is setting up the arguments for later in the chapter that he's going to make. I don't know. I don't know how this book is structured yet. Um, Let me find it. 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 And then I'll tell you. The answer is yes. The answer is yes, probably. I don't see the word break, but yes, that's what the break would be referring to. The break of the social world, and the quote unquote natural world. The natural versus the social. Oh, no. Sorry. No, I found it now. No. That the human condition is itself not a part of reality. Because everyone besides the capital S scientists are just simply prisoners in the view of the epistemology police. Sorry, I didn't see that. I didn't see that. He's describing what would have to be the case. He's describing like the absurdity of the in parentheses political epistemologist that counts are. So yeah. Instead of political epistemologist, I'm gonna say Sokals. I'm gonna say the Sokals, okay? Sokals. That's what I'm gonna say instead. Alas, to do so would be to forget the tiny but indispensable contribution of political epistemology, in parentheses, political epistemology. Thanks to the parentheses, we can name one of the two assemblies, quote-unquote science, and the other politics. Yeah, political epistemologist, derogatory. Yeah. I think it might actually... You might actually be completely right, Estelle. There might actually be a connection between... There probably is. Latour likes Nietzsche. Latour uses Nietzsche. Especially in his earlier stuff. We are going to turn the eminently political question of the distribution of power between two houses into a matter of distinguishing between a huge, purely epistemological question of the nature of ideas and the external world, as well as about the limits of our knowledge on the one hand, and an exclusively political and sociological question about the nature of the social world on the other hand. It has happened. Political philosophy is becoming irremediable, one-eyed, a monstrous and barbaric cyclops. The indispensable work of political epistemology turns out to be buried forever beneath the apparent confusion the epistemology police go about creating between politics, the sense of what distinguishes a capital S science from the capital I ideas of the cave world, and politics, the sense of the passions and interests of those who lie in the cave. Whereas it is a question of a constitutional theory that has humans deprived of all reality and non-humans holding all their power sitting in separate houses, we shall be told calmly that we must be very careful not to mix the sublime epistemological questions, the nature of things, with the lowly political questions, on values and the difficulty of living together. It's really so simple. If you try to loosen the trap by shaking it, it will close more tightly still, since you will be accused of seeking to confuse political questions with cognitive ones. People will claim that you're politicizing capital S science. You seek to reduce the external world to what the chain helots put into their world of fancies. That you are abandoning all criteria for judging what is true and what is false. The more you argue, the more you be challenged. Those who have politicized the sciences in order to make political life impossible even find themselves in a position to accuse you of polluting the purity of the sciences by introducing base social considerations. Those who have split public life into capital F science and society through a sophism are going to accuse you of sophistry. You will die of hunger or suffocation before you have gnawed through the bars of the prison in which you freely locked yourself up. And then 253. 7. There is a direct and unbroken chain of arguments from the first sophist case in 1995 to the Science Wars episodes. Uh-oh. Where were we? Oh, you're on 14. Wait, were we on 15? Wait. Yeah, okay, we were. We were a lot farther than I thought. You're on 16. Okay. I'm so far behind. I'm so many pages behind. I keep switching pages. It keeps fucking me up. It would be too easy to see the political intent behind the epistemological pretensions if we had not swallowed, thanks to the allegory of the cave, a modest supplementary hypothesis. The entire machine has functioned only if people have found themselves plunged into the darkness of the cave in advance. Every individual cut off from every other, chained to his or her bents, without contact with reality, prey to rumors and prejudices, already prepared to go for the jugular of those who come in to reform things. In short, without a certain definition of sociology, the epistemology police is unthinkable. Is this how people really live? It hardly matters. The myth requires, first of all, that we humans descend into the cave, cut our countless ties with reality, lose all contact with our fellows, abandon the work of the sciences, and begin to become uncultivated, hate-filled, paralyzed, and gorged with fiction. Then, and only then, will capital S science come to save us. Weaker in this respect than the biblical story of the fall, the myth begins with a state of abjection whose origin it carefully refrains from revealing. Now, no original sin requires public life to begin with the age of the caves. Political epistemology has somewhat overestimated its capabilities. It can use us for a moment in a darkened room with its own shadow theater that contrasts the forces of good with those of evil, right with might, but it cannot require us to buy a ticket to watch its edifying spectacle forever. Since enlightenment can blind us only if, in parentheses, political epistemology makes us go down to the cave in the first place, there exists a much simpler means than Plato's to get out of the cave. We need not climb down into it to begin with. Any hesitation over the externality of science was supposed to thrust us willy-nilly into mere social construction. Sorry. I blinked for a second. Yeah. I maintain that it is fairly easy to escape the menacing choice between the reality of the external world and the prison of the social world. A trap like that can hold up only as long as no one simultaneously examines the idea of capital S science and the idea of society, as long as no one entertains simultaneously doubts about epistemology and sociology. Those who study capital S science have to believe what the sociologists say about politics. Conversely, the sociologists have to believe what the political epistemologists have to say about science. In other words, there must not be any sociologists in the sciences, for then the alternatives would be too obvious. The contrast would be weakened. It would be understood that nothing in capital S science resembles the sciences, that nothing in the collective resembles the prison of the social world. Salvation through capital S science comes only in a world deprived in advance of any means to become moral, reasonable, and learned. But in order for this theory of capital S science to take place of an explanation about the work of sciences, a no less absurd theory of the social world has to take the place of analysis of public life. After we read this note, I actually have a very interesting connection to something I'm reading currently. So you're gonna get that. So it's in footnote 8, chapter 1. I can be permitted at this point some chauvinism about my own field. Yeah, you can, buddy. You always are. And I have never understood how readers of science studies could avoid from the outset seeing in this research a questioning of the very notion of the social world, social explanation, social history. On this essential point, see 2 articles written some time ago. Coulon and Latour, 1981. Coulon, 1986. I've been involved in 2 Enlightenment quarrels on this point with adherents of social construction. See Collins and Yearly, 1982, with our reply, Coulon and Latour, 1992, and later in Bloor, 1999, and my response, Latour, 1999a. Science studies have been accused of politicizing science, whereas they've done precisely the opposite. They have depoliticized the sciences by putting an end to the kidnapping of epistemology with the epistemology police. Want to know what this one is called? It's called, like, the egg. The chicken and the egg or something. I actually know these 2. The epistemological chicken, that's what it's called. It's called the epistemological chicken. I don't know what the one by the Coulon Latour is called. I forget what it is. Bloor 1999 is probably anti-Latour. Let's figure it out. Let's see. Bloor 1999. Yep, it's anti-Latour. Yep, I'm right. Yeah, I know. And Latour 1999A is this isn't the actual title of it, but it's the title that the Bruno Latour website gives to it. It calls the PDF Bloor for Bloor. And it's so goofy. But speaking about this point, let's go back to the thing. We're on 17. You're on 17. I'm reading a book called The Ignorant Schoolmaster. I'm in the first chapter, but there are actually some similarities between what Latour is talking about and what Rancière is talking about in that. In it, one of the big things about the Ignorant Schoolmaster is he talks about the theory of explication for teaching. And the theory of explication is kind of what it sounds like. To teach somebody something, you have to explain it to them. They can't just read things on their own. They need a teacher. They need someone to give them to explain this to them, to give them an explanation of this thing, to write out, follow the logic, and do this. And the Ignorant Schoolmaster and the Ignorant Schoolmaster, Rancière doesn't like this, and a guy called Jacotot ended up not liking this either. What he did was he went to Belgium. He went to Belgium. Sorry, I forgot where Flemish people come from. He went to Belgium, and he went to a school where most of the people only spoke Flemish. They only spoke Flemish, and he didn't know Flemish. And the students wanted to attend his lectures, but they didn't know French. And so there was this book. And this book was written in both Flemish and French. And so he just decided one day to kind of test things, how they would work. Yeah, Flemish people, my favorite thing. And he wanted to test something to see if it would work. And what he did was he gave them what's it called? There was this book that was translated into Flemish and to French, and he basically told them, read the French version. Just read the French version. And they came back, and without really any explanation of what they really needed to do, they started to actually learn French. They somehow just learned French. And Rancière, after a little bit, gets into it. and he explains that the whole idea of explication makes people completely powerless. They can't learn on their own. It makes them into people who think that they need someone to give them this explanation. They need this 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 teacher, this master figure, to give them this explanation. And they don't necessarily need this. Maybe they need a teacher of some sort, but it's not this. And that's why it's called the ignorant schoolmaster. One thing that Jackatot did, which Estelle, if you're curious, it's this. That's how you say his name. I don't know how to pronounce his name. But one thing that this guy did was he didn't know anything about art or piano, and he just started teaching people things about art and piano, and it worked. And he just was able to do it. It was really funny. Jacato. Uh, okay. If that's how you pronounce it, if that's how you pronounce it, that is that makes my life a lot easier. Because saying Jackatot is really hard for me. It's much easier to say Jackato. That's fucking much easier. Sorry. And I have to say, there's a similar thing going on here where uh the people, whoever they are, the people like Thor, by accepting the distinction that is made, in it, the distinction is made between the intellectual and the ignorant. The in the in Rancière's, whatever the fuck, yeah, everybody pronounces that his name. Um, in it, it is between the ignorant and the intellectual, basically. Well, that's what else called a distinction. It's called something else, I think, but the it gets the point across. And it's not a Flemish name. Jacato is French. Yeah, French teacher and educator. Was his family Flemish? I can't find anything in Wikipedia about his family. But yeah, I think his name is French because he is French. His name is fuck, I had it up. His name is Jean Jacques Rousseau. His name's Jean Jacques Rousseau. His name's Rousseau. His name's Rousseau. Oh no, he was born to sorry, I can't read. He was born to a someone named Jean Joseph Zakato, if I take Wag's pronunciation. But yeah, what was my point? Oh, the similarities between this. Yeah, and then in this one, it's the good political epistemologists getting fucked up by the epistemology police. It is hard to believe that epistemological questions have been taken seriously, viewed as though they were indeed distinct from the organization of the social body. Once it has been deflected, the ruse loses all its effectiveness. Henceforth, when we hear censors ask big questions on the existence of an objective reality, we shall no longer make a huge effort to respond by trying to prove that we are realists no matter what. It will suffice to retort with another question. How curious. So you're trying to organize civic life with two houses, one of which would have authority and not speak, while the other would have speech but no authority? Do you really think this is reasonable? Against this epistemology, police, one must engage in politics, and certainly not epistemology. And yet Western political thought has been paralyzed for a long time by this threat from elsewhere that could at any moment leave the essential part of its deliberations devoid of all substance. The unchallengeable nature of inhuman laws, capital S science, confuses the scientists, politics reduce the prisons, the cave. Yeah. This is very familiar. This is a very familiar one. This is a very familiar. Latour is going to go over, like, Latour said in the introduction, he's going to go over a lot of his arguments. If you've had any, um, if you've, like, had any interaction with Latour, like, literally at all, you're going to recognize this stuff. You're going to recognize, like, a lot of this. If you've heard me talk about Latour at all, or send anything by Latour, you'll probably recognize a lot of this stuff. This isn't like, it is different. I don't want to say it's the same. He's not making the same arguments, but he is making very similar arguments and very similar points. Like it's kind of there's a through line, is what I'm trying to say. Like it's like fucking, it's obvious. By discarding the allegory of the cave, we have made considerable progress, for now we know how to avoid the trap of the politicization of the sciences. 9. 253. The word politicize is used from here on in two distinct ways. The first amounts to reserving power plays for the prison of the cave alone, in the world of science as capital S science as apolitical. The famous neutrality of capital S science arises from the preliminary distribution of functions between capital S science on the one hand and politics on the other. To politicize, if we accept this division of work, at least provisionally, always amount to sullying pure and perfect capital S science by showing the power at play behind it. Against this pollution of scientific neutrality, it will always suffice to return to the initial purity, to recall the absolute difference that exists between the concerns of the human world and the cold reality of things. But to politicize also refers to the very invention of this absolute difference, this division of roles between apolitical reserve on the one hand and the shrinking of public life, the realm of passions and interest on the other. In order to free sciences from that of politics, we had to repoliticize capital S science. Sorry, my cat's messing with me. I have a cat. I have a little. I have a mouse. I don't have a cat. I have a mouse. And she's very needy right now, I think. She's very needy. She just wants attention. And so she's probably gonna be at my desk, and so I'm probably gonna stop reading sometimes because she's gonna get in the way, even though she's so small, even though she's so tiny, even though she's baby. Okay. To politicize in the first definition is is the exception of is the accepting of the epistemology police is idea, and then to politicize in the second definition refers to the invention of the absolute difference between between science and politics, between the sciences and politics. Yeah. Okay. 17. We're not on 17. We're on 18, aren't we? We are on 17. Wait. Wait. We aren't on. Well, we are on 17. That's right, but we aren't on that. We're on 9. By discarding the allegory of the cave, we have made considerable progress. We now know how to avoid the trap of the politicization of the sciences. The object of the present work is not to prove the small point from science studies. Also, I'm pretty sure it's using politicization in the second definition. I think so. If I understand it correctly. I might be wrong about that. The object of the present work is not to prove the small point from science studies, but to spell out its consequences for political philosophy. Can we conceive of a democracy that does not live under the constant threat of help would come from science, capital S science? What would the public life of those who refuse to go into the cave look like? What form would the sciences take if they were freed from the obligation to be a political service to capital S science? What properties would nature have if it no longer had the capacity to suspend public discussion? Such are the questions that we begin to raise once we have left the cave en masse. The end of a session of in parentheses political epistemology that we notice retrospectively has never been anything but a distraction on the road that ought to have led us to political philosophy. Just as we have distinguished science from the sciences, we're going to contrast power politics, inherited from the cave, with politics, conceived as the progressive composition of the common world. And now I have to go to the dictionary. That is not 237. That is 137. Is power politics before this? No, it doesn't. Where's power politics at? Is power politics not a term? Follow up. Consultation, constitution, collection, experimentation. That's not the thing anymore. Follow-up, good sense, hierarchy, institution, power of divine right, power of divine science, power to take into account, power to put in order, the power to follow up, the power to follow up. Again, power to take into account. Huh. Okay, so it probably is in it's probably just in politics then. I didn't see it. Used here in 3 senses that are distinguished by periphrasis. I don't know what that word means. Never seen that word. Periphrasis. The use of indirect and circumlocutory speech or writing. Using many words where fewer do, especially in a deliberate attempt to be vague or evasive, long-winded. uh, that's funny. A. In its usual meaning, the term designates the struggle and compromises between interests and human passions in realms separate from the preoccupation of non-humans. In this sense, I use the expression politics of the cave. B. In the proper sense, the term designates the progressive composition of the common world and all the competences exercised by the collective. C. In the limited sense, I've used the term to designate just one of the 5 skills necessary to the Constitution, the one that allows faithful representation by the activation, always to be repeated, of the relation between one and all. Bye, Bard. Hey, baby. My little kitty. You just want attention, don't you? It's attention time for you. But I'm streaming. You're so sick and twisted. She's so evil, guys. She's so freaking evil. I assume power politics is the politics of the cave. Is what I'm gonna say. That makes the most sense. Oh, we're on 18. Yeah. Yeah, power politics inherited from the cave. Yeah. We're probably going to cover this next section, by the way, and then I'm probably gonna stop for today. How long is this next section? Holy shit, this is long. Yeah. Yeah, we'll go. It's like 13 pages. You can do that. You can do it, guys. Oh. Did I? It was big round 18. How long have I been going for? 92 minutes. Okay. Ecological crisis, or crisis of objectivity. Some observers will object that science studies are not widespread. Actually, you know what we actually will do? We're going to do something else. We're actually going to switch. We're actually going to stop for right now. We're going to do a little brain break. Little brain break. I'm going to have some fun. First, I'm going to clear out these notifications because they're upsetting me. I see notifications and they're making me upset. Because Jamp frickin'... Oh god, now both of the cats are up here. Oh my god, it's horrible. Things are terrible. I can't see. I can't see the screen. Oh my god, I'm so upset. And now my cats are gonna be following my mouse cursor. I'm so upset. You know what we're gonna be doing though? We're gonna be switching. We're gonna be switching real quick. For that, we are going to talk about this because I want to because I want to. I think that's good. But first, I need to move one of my cats who's big, not small, out of the way. Come here, big guy. Can you just get in my lap, please? Can you please do that? That would make me so happy if you would do that for me, buddy. Okay. There we go. He's gone. But you can stay because you're tiny and you don't block the screen like he does. Because he's evil. He's so evil. But guys, what did you guys think? What did you guys think of this? What did you guys think of What do you guys think of this Bruno Latour book so far? And if you say anything other than you love it, I will yell at you. So you better say you love it. You better do lots of compliments and explain why. Um, I'm glad. All right, Estelle. Now we're gonna have to fight. Get in frickin' Discord, Estelle. We're gonna fight. I love that. Me too. I adore this. I love this. I love this. I adore this book a lot. I love this book a lot. I already like it. It's it's already doing a lot of things that Latour already does that I love. He's going over his previous stuff as well. He's going over quite a bit of it. Um, none of you, most of you probably don't know because none of you know Latour like I do. Um, he's kind of been. Hold on, I need to. Sorry, I need to go to the glossary real quick before I start. Before I could I give me a little summary of this. Um, actor, actant, association. Where are the terms? Constitution is a word he gets from he chooses, and we have never been modern. Due process is another one of those terms. Well, actually, he also uses it in his essay, "The Promises of Constructivism." Um, let's see. Let's see. There's other things. There's other things he did. He's also going to use almost certainly some what's it called? Some Isabel Stangers. We love Isabel Stangers. But what are the other terms? There was other things. Matters of fact, matters of concern. That's something not only in reassembling the social, but in his essay, Why Critique Has Run Out of Steam. Modern, a term that he uses quite differently in his essay, in his first essay in Factish Gods, but also he uses the term in We Have Never Been Modern. He's also using a lot of his same distinctions in different ways in this. The pluriverse also, it's something he gets from William James. It's something that comes up a lot in his writings. He's going a lot. He's going over quite a bit, and I'm already noticing quite a bit of spokesperson is a term that he comes up with in Science in Action, his third book ever written. Though if you look it up, you'll think it's his second book ever written because it was the second book ever translated into English. But Pasteurization of France actually comes first. And there's just so much stuff. There's just so much stuff like that. And yeah, I love this. I love this. This is my thing. This is literally my thing. But to kind of go through this and to kind of summarize, I'm going to go from the beginning. Also, love that for us. We only did 10 pages. Love that for me. We did only do 10 pages. To be fair, we also only did 10 pages last thing. So it seems like 90 minutes offers me about 10 pages, which is that's pretty normal for Latour. So it offered us yeah, it's kind of an insane amount of time that you need to take with this stuff, and you can go on even longer. If I was writing out notes, it would take so much longer too, because there's actually probably a really good way to write this stuff out. If you probably write it and map things out and connect the concepts together as well, That might actually be good, and that might actually make a lot more sense with Latour than a lot of other people. Gotta see where things connect. Um, but let's see. We showed up with the distinction of the capital S science from the sciences, which capital S science is in opposition to politics, while the sciences aren't. We have the distinction of political epistemology, in parentheses, political epistemology, and of course, epistemology, which uh, uh, political epistemology and epistemology are or what they sound like. They're the study of science and how to study science is what epistemology is. Political epistemology is the question of how the sciences and politics work together, is what I'm going to say. And in parentheses, political epistemology is what happens when people called up when people try to divide politics and capital S science. We had the cave, which the cave is we had the cave in the what's it called? And the ignorant masses who dwell down there, and with the cave, we do not want to ever we do not ever when dealing with the in parentheses political epistemologists, we do not ever want to separate politics and the sciences. We want to make sure that when dealing with them, we point out their double dealings. We want to make sure we do that. And that's the thing. Let's see. What else was there? Is there something else? We have the two houses, which of course are capital S science and politics, which have to be kept separate at all costs. And I think that's it. Oh, and we had the contrasting of power politics, or the politics of the cave with politics, which power politics is, what was the definition given in a thing? I liked that definition a lot more than whatever I would have to say. The term designates the struggle and compromises between interests and human passions in a realm separate from the preoccupations of non-humans. In this sense, I use the expression politics of the cave. And so basically, that is the politics part of the two houses duo of capital S science and politics. Or if we want to, we can just say politic capital P. That also works. We can do that as well. And then politics in the other term is, as he says, the progressive composition of the common world, which is. How do I explain this? How do I explain this? We're just gonna go to we're just gonna go to the definitions again, because I'm bad at explaining this. I need to get better. I need to write this stuff down and try to explain it as best as I can on my own time. I need to get good at that. The expression designates the arisen result of the progressive unification of external realities, for which we reserve the term pluriverse. The world in the singular is precisely not what is given, but what has to be obtained through due process. Yeah. This is a thing from William James. For anyone who doesn't know, William James is a pluralist. And through that, Latour gets his idea of the pluriverse and the progressive composition of the common world, which basically means eventually, um, after stuff happens, um, uh, I don't know how to explain it. It's really hard to explain. I should probably be Brilliant James. That would probably help. I should probably be Brilliant James. That would probably help. Um, I need to just start writing this stuff down and trying to explain it on my own. But yeah, any questions, any comments, any concerns? Does anyone want to argue with me? If you guys want to argue with me, I'll argue with you. That's fine. I'll try to be productive though. By argue, I mean I'll talk to you. Is what I actually mean. I don't mean I'll actually argue with you. I might yell at you a little bit, but not a lot. But yeah. So if anyone has any, if no one does, if no one has any questions, no one has any comments or any concerns, and if no one wants to talk to me about this, then I'll just freaking end stream, guys. We went for an hour 40 now, an hour 45 now. And I think that's pretty good. I think I'm doing an okay job. I need to do better. I need to start writing stuff down and explaining things. This would probably be this is a glossary of terms, and so this would actually probably be good for checking the way I'm describing things and seeing if I'm fitting everything that needs to be fit in that he's necessarily going to be talking about into it. So I could probably do that. I'll give you guys till 4:50 my time, which is 2 minutes now. Basically, it's basically 2 minutes now. But yeah. But yeah, this was good. This was good, I think. I I really like the tour. Um, if no one has anything else to say, if there is any place you should start out with the tour, um, if you are really interested in science studies, if you're especially interested in Latour, read Lab Life. Read Lab Life. In the QC, if you visit the Quarantine Collective, and I'll post it some. I'll post it some. It's also in the President's Sunday Discord server, the Cathedral. You can find it there. Lab Life is in there. And if you want another book, if you want a good introduction to, after that, to broad concepts and to have access to a wide range of things, you should read either Reassembling the Social, An Introduction to Actor Network Theory, or you should read Aramis or The Love of Technology. Those are the two books you want to read. Those are the three books you might want to read. If you're interested in it, you want to read Lab Life first. But if you kind of just want to jump in, start with Aramis. Start with Reassembling the Social. All of those are good. All of those are good. And if you're really interested like me, you'll just read all of the tour. You'll just do that. That's just what you'll be doing. And that's actually secretly what all this is about. This is just an excuse for me to talk to you guys and get better at explaining the tour, while also reading him. So, get tricked. You thought this was like a fucking reading thing. No, this is just me reading. I'm just reading, guys. I'm just a reader. So yeah, okay. Well, no one wants to argue, no one has any comments, no one's gay. So yeah. Well, I'll stop the stream now. Goodbye, guys. Goodbye, guys.